Welcome back to another episode of the Draw Control podcast. On today's episode, I am joined by sophomore on the Howard women's lacrosse team, Kendall Barker. Last season, Kendall picked up 16 ground balls and had 16 caused turnovers and four draw controls, with paired with one goal and three assists for 4 points. I'm super excited to have her on the podcast today. So, Kendall, thank you so much for coming on today. And how's everything going?
Everything is great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Well, I'm really excited to have you on as well. And obviously, the fall semester is coming to a close. So, how has your fall semester been, both on and off the field?
It's been good. I am a marketing major, so I'm kind of ending this 3 semester like initial class that we have. So it's an interesting seeing that come to a close because it's a huge like 200-person seminar. We have to present a bunch. So the end of like academically, like I'm feeling pretty good. And on the field, wrapping up fall is always like very interesting because of the weather. I know that's like not really like the biggest factor you would think about, but I'm from Ohio. DC has similar, slightly warmer and less precipitation type of weather. And so it always starts off so strong. And then as the weather starts to tank, it gets kind of interesting. So it's been pretty good actually because the weather hasn't been bad. So I've actually really enjoyed fall season.
Well, that sounds good. And obviously, what were some of the things I guess you worked on in the off season in regards to training to get ready for this upcoming season that you have?
So we have been working on a lot of fitness. I will say the increase from my freshman year to sophomore year, is definitely that we've been running and conditioning, a lot more. We also have more bodies, so it's easier to, get a bunch of like more complicated, more complex drills going. We've had a lot of outside help from Maddie Jenner actually has been coming to our practices, which is really cool. And working with mainly middies, but she also like we do a lot of stations and work like that, which has been really interesting because I think some people think it's kind of boring. It is a little bit of like lackadaisical, mundane type of work, but I really like the ability to like put my head down and then like get through everything. So I've enjoyed the training that we've been doing in the off season.
And as a sophomore this year, how is your mindset different heading into this season compared to last year as a freshman? I'm assuming it's a little bit easier since you sort of know what to expect now.
Yes, although I only have 1 year under my belt on this team, I would definitely say that I know a lot more, which is kind of a given. But last year, I feel like we very naive. My class came in and we were expected to be like a really good class. We started a lot of the games on the starting roster, so it was definitely like that was more pressure. And then this year we have a very talented freshman class again. And so I think my mindset is a little bit better since I'm more experienced, and I'm also focusing on kind of growing the class underneath me and fostering good relationships with them. For on the field chemistry, for off the field chemistry, and just to kind of facilitate their growth as players. And so honestly, I enjoy having the experience under my belt. It makes everything a lot easier.
Yeah. And you obviously played some fall ball games as well. So what'd you take away from those and how have the new players looked? I know you mentioned that you have a very talented freshman class coming in. So how have they sort of implemented themselves to the team this year?
I really would like to give a huge shout out to Gabrielle Nelson. She's a freshman on the team and she's just really um just performed like is the best way I could put it. And so her as like a midi, I used to run midi, no longer a midi anymore. And so I kind of have stepped in this role of kind of giving her a lot of instruction, or a lot of feedback, basically because I know what it feels like to be running around as a freshman, kind of like with your head cut off in a sense, darting from place to place, feeling a little bit lost. So I've been able to kind of use my experience to help her. Our football games have gone really well. We normally use them as like very instrumental factors for our plays and running sets and like how we want to do like how we want to run certain lines of players. And it's been interesting to see because we are implementing, I think, a new set of defense and oops, sorry, we're implementing a new set of defense. So we've been trying to practice running that instead of like not just on our own team. And honestly, it's been going really well. And we also played in a sixes tournament, which was the first HBCU women's lacrosse tournament ever hosted ever. And I love sixes. I participated in sixes during my entire high school and honestly part of middle school career as a part of winter training. And so I was so excited to fix this because that is the only like capacity in which I like genuinely truly enjoy being a midfielder. So because it's shorter field. So I was like having a blast. And I think sixes teaches you a lot about off-ball play and off-ball movement. And definitely gives you a sense of appreciation for your middies because you have no choice but to run back and forth and play both sides of the ball.
Now, thinking about next season, which starts in February, what are your team's goals and expectations for that season?
Um, I think our goal for one is definitely to win. I think we have a little bit more of a foundation now. I think with a relatively new coaching staff, like we've been trying to kind of like build a foundation, set an identity again, like kind of like just to like rally together the team, figure out team culture, underneath a new coach, and provide a lot of stability that this team hasn't really had before. And so in my business communication class we call it like the forming, storming, and performing stages, and so kind of working through the storming stage to kind of become a performing team is kind of where we're at. So I definitely think there's a lot of winnable games on our schedule this year, just in the direction that we're moving, and our goal I think also is to execute. I think we have a lot of huge goals, and we have not really seen a level of execution that we're looking for yet. So I really think like we want to be able to convert our plays into goals, for sure, dial in all of those missed shots, and kind of run a very successful transition from the defensive side. So I think that's what we're most focused on for the spring.
And is there anything individually that you want to accomplish next year?
I want to be on the NEC leaderboard for cause turnovers. I was really close last year. I had like, and when I think when I hit like 10, I was pretty close. I was still on the list. And then I think I fell off or something. I don't remember, but I was really excited because I think being on a leaderboard as a freshman was really cool. So I was really excited, and then I just missed it. So I want that to be kind of my main focus. And then since I am a midi transitioning to defense, I kind of want to be able to take those longer runs because I have the capacity to do so. And transitioning the ball if needed, and kind of become like an outlet or a connector between defense and midfield. Um, but yeah, those cards turnover, that's like a real goal that like I'm trying to get. So
Well, I believe you can get that goal, and I think manifesting on a podcast is a good way to do it. So I think it. I know you said you really want to do it as a freshman, but it's still very impressive to do that as a sophomore. So I believe in you that you're going to get that goal someday.
thank you.
So let's transition now and talk about the beginning of your career and sort of work all the way up to where you are today. So, like you mentioned, you're from Columbus, Ohio. So talk about growing up there and how did you start playing lacrosse?
So Columbus, Ohio, I feel like the Midwest isn't a huge lacrosse region, but it's growing, one of the fastest growing sports. So I grew up going to my cousin's games. My cousin Josh and Elijah played club, they played high school, and their high school team was New Albany High School. It's a very competitive team. They're almost always up for states, so they're a highly ranked team. And so when they would play, I would go, and my aunt was like, "You should totally play. Like, you should totally consider playing lacrosse." Like, and I was always like, "No, like that's not really something that I want to do." Like, I see them afterwards, and they smell badly, and they look like they've been beat up. Like, I don't know. I don't think I want to play. And she kept on telling me, like, it's different. Like, you don't understand. Like, girls lacrosse is different. There's different rules and everything. And I was like, yeah, yeah, whatever. Time comes around to, I'm gonna say sixth grade, the beginning of sixth grade, and my mom had signed me up for a lacrosse clinic. I had no idea, and I dragged my friend with me at the time, and I just remember her being better than me. And she had played before, so it was nothing. And I just remember like that level of competitiveness that I was just like, no, like I'm gonna continue with the sport because I want to be better. And so I started playing my sixth grade year at Gahanna, which is the high school I went to. Um, and it's not the program at Gahanna was not nearly as built as New Albany. New Albany has had a very impressive record for a very long time. But in Central Ohio, lacrosse does actually get very competitive. So it was very interesting to kind of start small and then see it grow as I grew up.
And growing up, did you have like a favorite player that you like to watch?
I actually talked about this discussion with my friend Kenzie because we started in the same clinic together and we basically, or I would call her my lacrosse best friend, and then eventually turned into my real best friend, because we did everything, including watching a million games together. Um, I it's hard because I had so many, but Dana Dobie honestly stands out to me as someone that me, her, and her dad like would all watch and like really analyze and sit in front of the TV and watch growing up. But I was also a huge UNC fan. I like couldn't even pick a favorite from the team if I wanted to because like I was just like I loved UNC, huge UNC fan. So those are definitely like pivotal moments that I just remember like being glued to the TV watching.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about your high school lacrosse career because you played for your high school at Gahanna Lincoln. What was your experience like there, and like what's the best high school lacrosse memory when you look back on it now?
Um, Gahanna was interesting. It was definitely like a school with a building team. Since me and as I previously mentioned, my best friend Kenzie like kind of started at the same time and really like grew with the program, I would say, because when we started the program it was pretty small. And then like as we were growing up, like they started adding third and fourth grade teams and second and first grade teams. And so like I really got to see the expansion of lacrosse inside of Gahanna because our main sports are typical main sports. We're a huge football town, stuff like that. So it's interesting to see like kind of like this underdeveloped program kind of grow. Um, I played midi my entire time at Gahanna, and I genuinely really enjoyed high school seasons because it was just so like rewarding. I feel like the payback was just like immediate and like you play 2 games a week, 1 game a week, and like the practice were consistent. And I always had a lot of kind of I wouldn't say control, but I had a lot of responsibilities on the team. Me and Kenzie both did. And so I like being in leadership positions. So I had a great time being captain and playing. But it was underdeveloped. So there were games where you were like, all right, like this one is absolutely 1000% winnable. And you were like, this one we're going to go out and we're going to play our hardest. And like, I learned this in college from my coach now, Karen Healy Silcott. But, when you go out, like, there's either two ways you can kind of approach a game as kind of focusing on the other team and what they're going to do, or you can focus on yourself and your wins there and what you're going to do. And I would definitely say like high school was definitely all about focusing on our team entirely, which I really like that method when playing in games, like controlling the controllables. Um, and Kenzie and I led that team to its most winningest record. I'm pretty sure we won 9-9 our senior year, which was great for Gahanna because we again don't have like as developed as a program as like New Albany. They were putting sticks in kids' hands at like age 3. So I would say like I was really proud um of that team. My favorite memory is 1000% our boys versus girls game at the end of every single season. We would switch off between doing a draw and a face off, and then we would switch sticks, and then we would play mostly by girls' rules. And if we were lucky, we'd play with a real ball, but most of the time we played with a tennis ball because of the way the ball like absolutely whips out of a pocket when you have one. So it was so much fun because like I tried to support that program, like the boys side of it as much as possible. So like we were all good friends and it was basically just like chaos running around and our coaches were friends and it was so fun. So that's my favorite memory from every single season would have to be the boys versus girls game.
Let's talk about your recruiting process now. What made you want to go to Howard versus other schools you might have looked at, and how do they like approach you and all that stuff?
So funny enough, 4 years ago today, I found it in my Snapchat memories. I said, "Oh my goodness, it would be so cool to play on an all-black lacrosse team. Like, I want to go to Howard. This is where I want to play. I'm going to play at Howard." So that was 4 years ago today. um, Made it happen. Very proud of myself. I think that's manifestation in itself. But I have always kind of been, I wouldn't say lonely, but it's not a very diverse sport. There's not a lot of people who look like me in the sport. It's growing, as I keep saying, so it's definitely going to change. But I knew I wanted to play for a more diverse team, and there is almost no other chance. The only other D1 program is Delaware State. That's an HBC lacrosse team. So I was just very, very excited that the program even existed to begin with. Howard is a very academically reputable school. And so I knew that I wasn't going to get the same opportunities in the business program, specifically going to Delaware State. Um, and so I was just very, very excited to reach out and talk to Howard. They were going through a coach change at the time, so I ended up committing with the interim head coach, which felt a little bit risky because we see like far too often people get on the team, new coach comes in, decides that they don't like people, kind of moves that around. So I was kind of nervous, but at the end, I feel like this was a really good fit. I love my coaching staff, and so I'm still really excited. And our interim head coach is still like very involved with the team, um, in his position that he actually holds. So it's like I love it. I feel like it's a great fit. And it was definitely a school that had everything I was looking for.
And what was like the biggest adjustment you had to make to college lacrosse in your first year?
Before our first game, our coach sat me and one other player I don't remember down in her hotel room when we were like having meetings before the game. I think she wanted to meet with all the freshmen before their first collegiate game. And just talked to us, and she was like, I like this is going to be a huge adjustment because of how small you are. I'm very small. I'm only 5'3". And I love playing defense. So I was like mainly a defensive player, but I was still a midi. And she was like, "You're going to get absolutely shocked your first time getting hit for real in a collegiate lacrosse game." And she was trying to prepare me for like that contact and the physicality that I was not used to yet. Definitely experienced it, and that was something I had to learn to adjust to just because in high school it's not nearly, they don't let as many things fly. And I feel like in the NEC versus like if you play in the ACC, like there's completely different um rules that they let go or give leeway to. So I would say honestly the biggest thing I had to work around was like my how to use my size and my strengths to my advantage in order to kind of get around more physical players.
Now, you mentioned this, but what's it like playing in the NEC and just the competition you face each game?
The NEC is an interesting division, because it's all like up the we can't play in the MEAC, which is where most of our other sports play in. Um, so I would say it's very mixed kind of division. There's definitely teams with like very varying skill levels, and so your preparation from each game is definitely not the same. Um, and I feel like the competition is definitely there. I feel like there's like kind of like an atmosphere because you are playing on the East Coast that there's more of a lacrosse atmosphere. People are more into it because like pretty much you're getting like, oh, my family played, oh, my dad played and my mom played, and so I think that's very interesting. um there's one other thing I want to say. The NEC, if I comes back I'll come back, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about your freshman year. So obviously last year didn't really go your team's way from a wins and loss standpoint, but what'd you take away from that first year? Because talking with other people, it seemed like you guys had signs, some positive signs throughout the season, and definitely things that you can build off of for this upcoming season that I think a lot of teams might not have noticed. But I'm just curious what your perspective was from this past year.
So since it was my first year playing for this team, I didn't understand when people are like, this is progress, because like we would go and we'd get beat so badly and people would be like, this is such like great progress until we got further into the season. And I was able to see with each game, we were also building progress besides just like fall ball preparation, kind of paying off. And so I was starting to get why people were saying, oh, this is momentum because it's the start of like a snowball, essentially, like an avalanche. So we were like kind of snowballing and snowballing and snowballing. And like it was very visible. And I remember we played a team at the end. One of the moms came up to, I think it was me, and I was standing with my parents. And she was like, this is the best I've ever seen Howard Lacrosse play. And I felt like I had a good game. I felt like the team played well, even though we lost. And her saying that, I was like, this is like I feel like I'm actually part of like a big change and a big shift for this team. And so now I can definitely see it. And then coming into fall ball, I can see it even more. And so I'm very, very excited for the way like being able to kind of see the change from when I got into this program versus leaving this program. I think that the change will be huge. And I'm really excited that I get to be part of that process.
Now, you scored your first collegiate goal against Central Connecticut State last season. Just talk about scoring that goal and what you remember from that play.
My coach is gonna kill me, but I do remember closing my eyes. I am not very attack based. I played midi in high school and scored all of the time, but it was mainly out of like necessity. So when I got to college, I think I was a little bit more timid on the attack side just because of the physicality that I wasn't used to. I was used to just kind of sprinting by and then like ending up in front of the goal. And so I kind of like took a step back, and it had been, I want to say, like months of me like trying to like work on my confidence on the attack side. Like I was like confiding in all my teammates that I knew like had struggles or confidence issues, whatever. And I was like, guys, like I just need to like get in there and just like go. Like I just need to like get out of this mindset. So finally it was our last game, and I was like, if there's any time to do it, this is the time. Um, and I had a good dodge. And I just remember ending up like in front of the cage, and I'm pretty sure I closed my eyes when I shot. And I told my coach, she was so mad. So she was like, don't tell me that. But yeah, it's honestly like it seems like one small thing, but it actually took a lot of build up.
Yeah.
So it was very rewarding at the end.
I know your coach probably doesn't care at this point just because you scored that goal. So that's all that counts at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Well, you were talking about, improvements that your team made throughout the season, but what would you say is the biggest improvement that you've made to your game since you started college?
I would say definitely my defensive awareness. I'm not used to playing in like different sets. I'm used to just playing man on, but learning how to work zone and I was zone and like high pressure defense and like just the different sets. Working with Rovers has definitely been a transition. But I've enjoyed every step of the game. Like I am a huge defensively based player, so I've enjoyed every single step and learning more about the defensive process.
So we're now in a segment I like to call the non-lacrosse segment, where I ask you some non-lacrosse questions just to get to know you a little bit more off the field. And if you need help with any of these questions, I can give you my own answer, just so I can give you some time to think about your response. But the first one is, if there was a movie made about your life, who would you want to play yourself?
Who would I want to play myself? Hmm. Want to is an interesting. I'm gonna say Sky Jackson only because I grew up and she was like, I wouldn't say my idol, but like when I saw her on TV, I saw a lot of her and myself, and I was like, oh my goodness, like, so I would definitely say her. She still acts. I would say Sky Jackson. Who
Yeah.
would you say? I want to know all of your answers too, regardless.
Yeah, so for me, I'd say actor would probably be Ryan Reynolds, just because I think he's a funny guy and I like a lot of his movies. Even though we don't look alike, I just want to brag to my friends saying that he played me in a movie. So that's who I would go with. But I feel like it would be cool if like Tom Brady played me in a movie as well, because I really like him a lot. And I know he's not an actor. I just think it would be cool. I feel like for me, that's who I would pick just because I like him a lot. So either Tom Brady or Ryan Reynolds would be my pick.
I would definitely, okay, I'm gonna add to that, and I'd say maybe Issa Rae too, because I
Okay.
love her comedy and her delivery is hilarious to me. I would probably, yeah, Issa Rae is hilarious. Love her. Her, Sky Jackson.
Nice, nice. I always feel like Sky Jackson's still like a kid, even though she's like a grown adult now.
She looks, I don't, she has a baby face. Like, so she's forever gonna look like a bit. She's gonna age great though. So,
Yeah. Well, next TV-ish question, but what is your guilty pleasure TV show?
okay. I'm not guilty at all. It's Barbie Life in the Dream House. I love that show. I could quote every single episode if I really wanted to. I think it's just like a comfort thing. But I love Barbie Life in the Dream House.
For me, I don't really have a TV show that's guilty pleasure. Probably just like watching the Entertainment Tonight and just all the celebrity gossip. That's fun to watch now and then. So I'd say I'll catch myself watching that here and there. So that's probably my guilty pleasure TV show, even though I don't know if it will be considered a TV show or not. So
Counts.
yeah. Well, we're in the holiday season now. So what's the most underrated holiday and what's the most overrated holiday in your opinion?
Underrated holiday for me is gonna have to be Thanksgiving. I love Thanksgiving. It's like the best time ever. My family gets together and we laugh and debate and I just love my family. We have a very like maternal based family. My mom is the oldest of nine. So I'm an only child, but my mom's the oldest of nine. So I'm very close with all of my aunts and uncles. And I love like it's my favorite time for everybody to come together. So definitely Thanksgiving as underrated. Overrated, in my opinion, would definitely have to be either July 4th or Halloween. And I love Halloween, but I don't understand the point. So
Yeah, I get
like
it.
like there's no what are we mm. And July 4th, I feel like people go really hard for July 4th. Like that's a holiday like everybody goes hard for. I've never really been like, oh, okay. Like I don't know. It's people really love July 4th.
I just think since it's in the summer, it's like one of the few summer holidays. A lot of them are in the winter time, so it's like one of the few holidays where like the weather's nice to like do something in. So that's probably why.
Mhm. Yeah, that makes more sense. Yeah.
I agree with you. I think overrated's Halloween just because you can't trick or treat anymore, and it's like the best part about the holiday. It's like taking away eating turkey on Thanksgiving. Like, what's the point? So I would say that's for me is overrated, and then underrated I would say is probably like Easter or Christmas Eve, just because I think it's fun just spending time with family without sort of the I guess the pressure of the gift giving because we usually do it on Christmas Day. So I'd say that those two for me are the top, more underrated parts of more underrated holidays in my opinion. So now, what is the most interesting thing you've read or seen this week?
Most interesting thing I've read or seen this week. God, I've been so consumed with finals season. Hmm. Give me yours.
I saw this story about the North Carolina field hockey coach who graduated from North Carolina, then became the head coach the following season, and she just won the national championship. I thought that was pretty cool. And yeah, I just thought that whole story was pretty neat because I feel like you're never gonna see that again.
I remember when that story first came out and I have seen that post. And I was just very, very, very like that's so exciting. And also very interesting turnaround. Because I know a lot of people were kind of skeptical of whether she'd be able to lead that team or not. I do remember the most recent thing I've seen, I think, in the news is that LeBron James would skip a Lakers game to go see the debut of his son play since he just recently got cleared to play at USC. I think that is so important. I think that LeBron does a really good job of kind of like showing that his career is always going to be second to his family. And so I think like showcases just being a very well-rounded human being. And I thought that was very sweet.
Yeah, I agree with him on that. I would probably do the same thing. And I think I like LeBron. I think he's a good guy. I feel like he gets too much hate sometimes. So shout out to
Hey,
LeBron.
I love the man. He's in Ohio.
Yeah, he brought the
From Ohio.
championship back. So um and this question I don't know if I can answer. I'll give you my answer, but which player on the Howard women's lacrosse team has the best off the field style? Kendall, I think you have the best style on the team. Maybe in all of D1 women's college lacrosse, honestly, but besides yourself, who would you say has the best style on the team?
I would say my sweet mate Rania Jones. She oh wait, one, she's right behind this wall, but she lets me borrow her clothes all the time and I appreciate it. She's one of those people where like she has a very unique individual style, and I'm someone who doesn't kind of like label my style like down to like, oh, this is what I like to wear. I like to dress all like in any way all the time. Which kind of makes it hard to have a concise closet. And she always lets me borrow things, and I really appreciate her. I think she always puts it on.
Last non-lacrosse question: what is one place you would love to travel to?
Venice. I want to go to Venice before it floods so badly. Um, is it gonna happen? I'm gonna say it is. It is going to happen. So when I go to Venice before it floods, but I just have always kind of been in love with the city design because it's so cool.
Mine's weird, probably Toronto. I think it looks like a cool city, so I'd love to visit there.
I think the Toronto accent is very interesting.
Oh yeah, probably all the Drake songs makes me want to go there. So I'd say that's probably it. But it looks like a nice city, so I'd love to visit and just see a different country. So,
Yeah.
well, I got one more lacrosse question I want to ask you before this interview comes to a close, and that's just what should be done to help grow women's lacrosse from your perspective.
Um, I feel like growing women's lacrosse, like I mean, it's going to grow naturally with the sport, but as we keep on having these like standout female athletes like Charlotte North and Izzy Skane and like all these people who just really help like boost the sport, and unfortunately like these are the only people who get like real like outside of like women's lacrosse like opportunities to kind of shine and show it. I think they do really pioneer the growth of the sport because more people tune in, more people pay attention, and also I think the more it shifts over from the east coast to the west coast, so even with like the PLL just kind of having things all over the place, like even though it's men's, I think it still gives the sport visibility, which ends up benefiting women's lacrosse. And I feel like honestly, bigger companies like Nike or something like could definitely hold like huge campaigns to kind of spread women's lacrosse as a whole. And I think it'd be really beneficial.
Hmm. I would say I agree with you. Part of the reason why I started this podcast was to get people that I guess don't get enough recognition to have some sort of platform to talk about their careers. And I know this podcast is very small compared to other media platforms, but hopefully just a little something to help promote different teams and players, not just in Division 1, but also in Division 2 and 3. And then just the other thing is just making it more diverse. I think a sport that's more diverse grows more. So just having more people of color play, and I just think that'll be important as well, just because I think a lot of people don't realize when they see someone that looks like them, they want to like follow in their footsteps. And I think for lacrosse, I think if you get more people of color and different minorities playing it, more little kids will want to can see people that look like them, and then they would want to play the sport, and that just helps it grow even more. So that's sort of, I think those are the ways to help grow the sport in my opinion. So.
Absolutely. That's like my biggest goal is like once I'm done, like I want to give back to an inner city program or give back to start more majority minority teams, like which is like the whole reason that I chose the school in the
Mhm.
first place.
Well, Kendall, before we end this interview, do you have any shout outs you want to give to your former teammates, current teammates, family members, and friends? And who should we have on the podcast next? I'd love to have more Howard players on in the future.
Um, I would love to give a shout out to my parents for supporting me through final season and letting me call them and complain. They have been huge supporters. And I'd like to give a shout out to my sweet mate and roommate, Rania Jones again, and Chase Coleman, both on the lacrosse team. They're bio majors, so they're really struggling right now, and I love them so much, and I wish them the best on all of their finals because as a marketing major, my schedule is nothing compared to theirs. Someone that you should get on the podcast. Um, I have a friend at George Mason. Her name is Tori. I think that would be really cool just because we used to play club together and now she plays and we're really close and I'll be able to play against her. For my own team, I think you should get Chloe Ronshold.
Okay.
She's a freshie. And I think her lacrosse story is very interesting because she has a twin who also plays at Arizona State.
Awesome. We'll definitely reach out to those people and see what happens. But Kendall, thank you so much for taking time of your day and coming on. I really appreciate it. I think you're a great player and even better person. So I just want to let you know that. And yeah, it was a great getting the chance to talk with you and learn more about your career.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I think this is like a great way to kind of spread information about women's lacrosse, and I'm really glad that like that's your initiative and everything.